All right, so let's get right into it. Today, we're tackling one of the biggest, toughest climate challenges out there. How in the world do you clean up the massive global shipping industry? To figure that out, we're going to use one company's super ambitious plan as our map to navigate these pretty tricky waters.
First off, you really got to wrap your head around the sheer scale of this. We're talking about roughly 90% of everything traded in the world traveling by sea. You know, the stuff that fills our homes, the parts that build our cities, all of it makes its journey across the ocean in the belly of these gigantic ships. It's no exaggeration to say this is the absolute backbone of our global economy.
But of course, there's a catch, and it's a big one. This engine of global commerce, well, it runs on some of the dirtiest fuel on the planet. The whole industry is responsible for about 3% of all global greenhouse gas emissions. To put that in perspective, if shipping were a country, it'd be the 6th largest polluter in the world. Wow.
So, that brings us to the big one, right? The billion-dollar question. How do you take an industry that's so fundamental to our lives and steer it toward a greener future? I mean, how do you even begin to clean up the seas? Okay, so here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with shipping's carbon footprint, then look at a really ambitious new goal. After that, we'll dive into the 3-part strategy to make it happen, check out the new ships, see how it affects the entire supply chain, and wrap up by asking what this all means for the future of global trade. Let's go. All right, Section 2. To really get to the heart of this, we're going to zoom in on one company, HMM. They're one of the world's biggest container shipping lines, and they've decided to do something pretty bold. They're not just aiming to meet the industry standard for climate action, they're trying to beat it.
Okay, and this is where it gets really interesting. On one hand, you've got the industry-wide target set by the International Maritime Organization. That's the IMO, the big global regulator. They're saying net zero by 2050. But then you have HMM, and they've committed to hitting net zero by 2045, a full 5 years ahead of schedule. That's a big deal.
Okay, Section 3. A bold target is one thing, right? But how do you actually pull it off? Well, HMM's entire strategy is built on what they call their 3 green pillars. Think of it as their blueprint for a complete top-to-bottom makeover.
And here they are: green horizon, green movement, and green management. I kind of like to think of them as the hardware, the software, and the overall operating system for a totally new kind of shipping company. So let's break down what each one actually means.
First up is Green Horizon. This is all about the physical stuff, the big-ticket items. It starts with the most obvious thing, getting brand new, low-carbon ships. But, and this is key, it doesn't stop there. It also means revamping the port terminals so they're carbon efficient, and even swapping out diesel trucks for electric and hydrogen vehicles back on land.
Next, we've got green movement. This is where all the cool tech comes in. It's all about what's actually powering the ships. The big plan is to switch the fleet over to cleaner fuels like methanol and LNG. And for the ships they already have, they're going to retrofit the engines and use some really neat new tech, like air lubrication systems. It's wild. It literally creates a carpet of bubbles under the ship to cut down on drag and save a ton of fuel.
And finally, pillar number 3 is green management. This one's all about working smarter, not just harder. It means doing things like running the ships at steady, efficient speeds to save fuel. It also means upgrading their data systems to track every single gram of CO2. And crucially, it means teaming up with all their partners to build a value chain that's carbon efficient from start to finish. So that's the strategy on paper. But what does it actually look like in the real world? Let's talk about the actual ships, the tools that are going to make this whole transition happen. First, just take a look at where their business is focused. This chart makes it super clear. Over 83% of their portfolio is in container shipping. We're talking about the ships that carry pretty much everything we buy. So, when a company this big decides to overhaul this part of its fleet, you better believe it sends massive ripples across the entire world of trade. So how exactly are they powering these new ships? Well, the key technology is something called dual-fuel engines. The easiest way to think about them is like hybrid cars, but for the ocean. They can still use conventional oil if they absolutely have to, but they're really designed to run on much cleaner alternatives, like methanol or LNG. And that change alone massively slashes emissions.
And get this isn't some plan for 20 years down the road. It is happening right now. In 2024, they're getting a dozen huge new vessels, plus their first 2 ships that run on LNG. Then, over the next couple of years, 9 brand new methanol-powered ships are coming online. It's all part of a very real, very concrete plan to grow their fleet by 2028, with this green tech right at the heart of it all.
All right, but HMN knows something really important here.
A green shipping line can't do it alone. I mean, a low-carbon ship is fantastic, but what about the people who build it, or fuel it, or service it? You have to look at the entire supply chain because you're only as strong as your weakest link.
And their approach to this is super methodical. Any company that wants to be their partner has to go through a two-step process. Step one is kind of the standard stuff, quality, price, are they financially stable? But then comes step two, which is arguably even more important, a really deep dive into their ESG performance.
And believe me, this evaluation is thorough. It is not just a box-ticking exercise. On the environmental side, they're asking tough questions like, do you have your own net zero plan? On the social side, it's, are you protecting your workers' rights and safety? And for governance, are you serious about anti-corruption and fair play? Basically, they're holding everyone in their network to the exact same high standard they're setting for themselves.
Okay, so we've looked at the new ships, the new fuels, and the entire supply chain. So what does it all add up to? What's the future of green trade actually look like?
I think this one quote from Hum's own plan says it all. They say their strategies are aiming for two things at once: growth and reducing greenhouse gases. For them, those two things aren't at odds with each other. They see being sustainable not as just some extra cost, but as the absolute core of how they're going to grow in the future.
And that really leaves us with this final big question. We've just walked through the game plan for one major company in a truly massive industry. So can this one detailed, super ambitious roadmap become the blueprint for the entire industry? Can the green ambition of one company really help steer the entire world of shipping toward a cleaner future? Honestly, the health of our oceans and our planet might just depend on the answer.